This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mintz.
Somehow she had done it. 500 pages, 30 minutes in the morning and the afternoon. It was not for pleasure. It was work. The book was work. It was 9 in the morning, and she was on the express train. She had turned the final page of Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, involved herself in the final act of defiance by Yossarian as he chose a life of exile and ventured off into the unknown, but not before a final brush with death at the hands of Nately's whore. What this all meant to her was an eternal mystery. The book club had chosen the title, and the next meeting was in 3 days' time. She had just made the deadline. Then someone sat next to her and pulled out a copy of Breakfast of Champions from his work satchel. He addressed her unwelcomingly on a morning commute, as one could imagine. "Such a great book," he said as he looked at the cover of the Joseph Heller classic as it rested in her lap. He held up the copy of Kurt Vonnegut's Breakfast of Champions for her to acknowledge. "I'm halfway through this," he declared. She gave him a nod, which firmly indicated her unwillingness to engage. "What did you think of it?" he asked. "I hated it," she replied. "Oh, come on," he said. "Colonel Korn, Major Yossarian, they're all hilarious." "If you say so," she replied. "What didn't you like about it?" he eventually asked. She huffed. There was no backing out of it. He had cornered her. He was blocking the exit row. It was derogatory to women in the middle third, a lot of guy acceptance discussions around rape and femicide. Plus, the circular conversations were humorous at first, but then became repetitive and annoying. I didn't know who was who, and I labored through not for pleasure, but to conquer it for my book club this Saturday, she said, just to get it off her chest, not to make a new friend. "That's the point," he declared. She wanted to hit him. You go into the book with the clutch. That Catch-22 presents an unwinnable premise. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. You can't request to have yourself taken off air missions because that would indicate that you are not crazy, because you are sane enough to inquire. Therefore, you are not crazy, so you must fly them. Same goes with you. You were dragged to the book and told by popular culture that you must enjoy it. But you can't enjoy it because the book is hard work. But you don't want people to know you didn't enjoy it because it's a classic, so you force yourself to finish it even though you probably should have just walked away from it. If it wasn't such a classic, does that make sense? He said. She hated people who say, "Does that make sense?" "Excuse me," she said. She stood up, forcing him to move out of the way. She couldn't wait. She stepped over his legs and removed herself from the aisle and toward the back doors, where she could exit into the adjoining carriage. She heard him cry out, "Was it something I said?" further embarrassing her walk to freedom in front of the many onlooking commuters. She entered the adjoining carriage and found one seat vacant among the sea of sardines. It was beside a middle-aged, well-dressed man. She took him for a lawyer. His head was buried, looking down at something. As she approached, she noted that he was already deep into a book. He glanced up at her as she sat next to him, then straight back down at his book. She placed her bag on the floor and rested the book down on her legs, the cover displaying up for all to see. Catch-22. The man looked over and then up at her. He closed the cover of his own book and showed it. "Oh, nice," he said. "Check it out." He held up the cover of the book he was reading. It displayed Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, Jr. "Absurdist literature knows no bounds, am I right?" he asked. She stood from her seat and walked toward the exit, entering the platform at the first station that came into view. It was far from her desired destination. She had a 9:30 meeting that couldn't be missed. She would now be missing it. But to avoid the obnoxious, it was worth the dilemma. He stood from his seat and ventured to the back carriage that adjoined the previous one. He looked up and down the aisles for her, his one true love. She didn't know it, but he would be quick to point it out. It would take time. Then one day, he would write about it in the story of their lives, and it would become a bestseller, and she would love him even more, and their children would ask, "How did you meet Mommy Daddy?" To which they would reply together, finishing each other's sentences. "Well, son," or daughter, perhaps 3 kids, he would say. "Well, we were on a train one day, and she was reading Catch-22, and I was reading Breakfast of Champions, and we just observed one another and made reference to the fact that we were both fans of absurdist literature, he would explain to his fictitious child. He saw a man glancing up and down the aisle from his seat. He had a book in his lap that he wasn't reading. Eventually, he noticed Jonathan and approached him. "Are you looking for her too?" The man, whose name was Julian, asked. "Yeah." Jonathan replied. "I saw her first," Julian said. "I saw her last," Jonathan replied. "I already have our life planned out, and it doesn't include you," Julian replied. "As have I, and you aren't even a skerrick of an idea or an absent thought in ours," said Jonathan. Julian thought for a moment. "That's a good line," he said. "Thank you. You read Vonnegut? You read Heller?" "Yes," they both replied in unison.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.